a forgotten history, a settlement that disappeared without any warning, and a jester who swears there's a vampire hunting in the desert. This is not the adventure I planned, but this is the adventure we're getting. Welcome to episode 4 of this D100 Dungeon combined with the Mythic GM Emulator actual play series. In this series, I take a solo RPG and I transform it into an open world with endless possibilities, where every single adventure and every decision is made by a roll of the dice. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and this is The Quiet Table, where we explore the wild, unpredictable, and deeply personal side of solo RPGs. If you love immersive storytelling, world building, and the thrill of the unknown, you're in the right place. So far in this series, we've set up our world and the first 3 quests. Today, I am sending my adventurer out into the wide world. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's see where the story takes us. If you haven't seen the previous videos, they are not necessary. You can just stay with me right here and continue on this journey with my main character, Alendra. If you would like to see those videos to see how she came about and how her world was built, they are linked in the description box down below. So now we're ready to start playing by using the World Builder. The world builder actions are outlined on this sheet, and the way that this game is played is by spending action points, with the goal being to locate and complete 25 quests. Now, we know of 3 quests. We haven't started those, but we do have them on the sheet. And these are the actions that my character can take at any point in time as she goes about her day-to-day life. She can rest, she can scout, she can forage, she can fish, she can do a side quest if there is one. We'll get to that. She can take a cart to go from one hex to another. She can ride a mount if she owns one. Right now, she doesn't. She can move from one hex to another, and there are rules around that. She can get the lay of the land to generate some of these hexes that have not yet been generated. She can listen for news of other quests. She can make camp if she needs to rest. Usually, this happens after she finishes a particular quest, or she can visit a camp or a settlement. So, right now, she is starting in the city of Yestus because that is where she was born. Now, we did decide that she is currently living with Countess and 3 outside of Yestus, but we're going to say, just for the sake of argument here, that she is still in the same hex. She is in the grasslands of the wise, and this is where she is starting out. So Alendra is aware of 3 quests. Now, she has a choice as to which one she wants to go after. When we generated these quests, we also realized that quest number 3 is going to be the easiest because it has an encounter modifier of -30, followed by quest number 2, followed by quest number 1. So it would absolutely make the most sense that she would go after quest number 3. But you know what? Alendra is not going to do what is expected of her. She is going to make a decision at random. Rather, as Elandra's player, I'm going to make a decision at random because I don't like to do what's expected. I want to be surprised. I want to not know what's happening next and what's coming next. And so I'm going to do just that. I'm going to roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, it's going to be quest 1. On a 3 or a 4, it's going to be quest 2. On a 5 or a 6, it's going to be quest 3. So she is, in fact, going to go after quest number 3. As a reminder, or if you haven't watched the video, quest number 3 requires Alendra to go into a dungeon in the Hills of Treasure and try out something called the Master Key Mall that a Fletcher has developed. And he claims that this mall can open any door. Now, there is a door right called Leonis Valtos who doesn't believe this. And so he is hiring an adventurer to go and test this claim to figure out whether the mall does, in fact, open any door. Leonis Valtos, in the way that we develop this quest, also has her go through a very long list of ways that she needs to prove that this mall actually works. So we'll see how that develops when we actually get there. But that is the point of the quest. It's a completely over-the-top quest. Those are my favorite kind of quests. As I said, it's also the easiest one that we have on the quest sheet. So all she has to do is go in there, fight whatever monsters are in the way, maybe, hopefully, find some treasure,
and find 2 jam doors and try out this master key mall and see what happens. And then bring back her results to Leonis Valtos and hopefully get 100 gold pieces for her trouble. Now, 100 gold pieces doesn't seem like a whole lot, especially given that she has to go a pretty long way to get to the Hills of Treasure. And in order to do that, we do actually need to develop the 2 hexes that are in the way so that we can see what kind of terrain she has to go through. So that is exactly where we're going to start. We're going to start with getting the lay of the land. I am going to use Mythic to help me flesh this out. So in the world builder, it actually says that what the adventurer is doing here is she is finding some locals to ask what is happening in this particular hex, what the hex is like. So we're going to assume that for whatever reason, Alendra has never been down here. She doesn't really know what's down here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out my Mythic Fate chart and I'm going to roll on that chart. I'm going to use the chaos factor of 5. So the first question that makes the most sense to me, given that she lives with the Countess right now, is does Alendra ask the Countess about this location? I got an 8. That is an exceptional yes. So because I got an exceptional yes here, we are going to say that rather than just offering a general description, Countess Anne 3 reveals that she has personal ties to this place. I'm not entirely sure what that means yet. I think we're going to generate the hex to figure out exactly what kind of personal ties she has, whether she used to live there, if there's a settlement of some kind, or something else is going on, but she knows this place very well, and she is able to provide Alendra with some detailed maps far beyond what Alendra had actually expected that she would receive. So knowing that, we are going to go ahead and generate this land right here. And we are going to do that the way we always do. We're going to start by rolling for the terrain type. We got a 7, so this is a desert. Next up, we are going to name our desert. We got a 55. That is the broken terrain. So that is the broken desert. And it has a -1 and the little c, which is the amount of reward that you get. Up next, we have to figure out if there's a settlement in the broken desert. Since the terrain is a desert, we only have a 15% chance that there's a settlement in here. So let's find out. 90, there is no settlement in the broken desert. Now let's find out if there's a road going through here. We have a 15% chance that there's a road. However, we get to add a 10% chance if one or more roads flow into the area. There is a road flowing into the area, so that's an extra 10%. So that's at 25%. Then I get to add another 10% if one or more rivers flow into the area. So there's a river and a road flowing in from the grasslands of the Wise. So that brings us up to 35% chance. No road, 91. And let's find out if there's a river. We have the same odds because we've got a road and a river, so 35%. That's a 66, no road, no river. Just super simple, straightforward. The broken desert, very similar to the Hills of Treasure. And I forgot to write down that there's a -1. So it cost Alendra 1 action point to find out the lay of the land, which means that it took her 1 full day to get the Countess to tell her about this place. So I'm going to grab my calendar and I'm just going to cross off another day. So that was Saturday. So she spent all of Saturday sitting down with a Countess and looking through maps of the broken desert. However, from a narrative perspective, so from a D100 dungeon perspective, this is complete. From a narrative perspective, I don't really know why Countess Anne 3 knows so much about the broken desert, but I am going to ask Mythic and I'm going to roll on some tables and I'm going to figure out exactly how she knows as much as she does about the broken desert. Remember, we got an exceptional yes when we rolled as to whether or not she knows anything about the broken desert. So not only does she know something, she knows a lot. I am actually going to roll on the character background table, which is a mythic table. I'm going to roll twice. I'm going to get 2 words. I'm going to put them together and I'm going to figure out how the Countess knows about the broken desert. So I got 28, which is danger. Makes sense. The broken desert seems either unexplored or at the very least completely uninhabited and unsettled. So danger and 36, which is environment. Danger and environment, dangerous environment. Again, makes perfect sense. So I'm going to play out this mini scene and I'm going to imagine that Alendra once again goes into Countess Anne 3's study and she says, I know that you hired me to go to the grasslands of kings, and I will do that, I promise. But before I do, I want to go out to the hills of treasure. And she explains the quest that she came across and the fact that she needs to test the small. And to her surprise, the Countess is very encouraging and supportive. And she says, "Yes, of course, dear. How can I help you?" And so Alendra says, "Well, I'm looking for information about what I can expect to encounter between here and there. I know the Hills of Treasure are pretty far away, and I'm curious whether you're aware of what is to the southeast of here." And Countess Anthree says, "You want to know about the Broken Desert? My family once believed the Broken Desert could be tamed, that it could belong to us. That was our first mistake." And she stands up and she goes to a nearby shelf and she pulls out a rolled up piece of parchment that she then brings back and unrolls it. And she reveals a map with all of these faded markings. And she explains that these were territory lines that never came to be. And she says, "Centuries ago, long before my time, my ancestors laid claim to the Broken Desert. No one had ever done so before. There are no roads, there are no rivers, no borders. It's just endless dunes and fractured earth and silence stretching to the horizon. To my ancestors, it was just untouched land, free for the taking. And so they did what all ambitious fools do: they sent people to claim it. Stories say that they even managed to build a settlement there. And then one day, it was gone. It wasn't overrun. It wasn't abandoned. It was just gone. There were no bodies, no wreckage, no signs of war or plague. It's as if the settlement never existed. My ancestors sent scouts, search parties, and they found nothing. So, of course, my family was forced to abandon their claim, move on to greener pastures. Quite literally, they set their sights on the grassland of the kings and found it never off. I do have maps, fragments of maps. I don't know how accurate they are. Promise me you'll be careful." Elandra says, "I promise." And she takes the maps that were offered to her. I'm going to see, while she's having this conversation with Countess Anthree, if there are any quests that she can pick up for the Broken Desert. Once again, I'm going to roll on the fate table. And this time I'm going to say it is nearly certain that Countess Anthree is curious about this place, that she's probably kept an ear out for rumors, that she maybe has some leads on some things that might be happening there. So I'm going to give myself odds of nearly certain with a chaos factor of 5. So let's see, 60. Yes, Countess Anthree does know about a quest. I'm going to say it takes her another day. So we're going to cross off Sunday and say that she spends 2 days talking to Countess Anthree. Theoretically, she's probably not eating her rations because she is staying at Countess Anthree's place. But to play the way that the world builder wants us to play, we are going to take off 1 ration per day. Let's just say that Alendra has some food allergies that require her to eat her own food. So she's going to eat 2 of her rations, 1 per day. So this is going to be quest 4. And now we're going to roll a D100 on the quest table. 63, Night Terrors. Kill 1d6 plus 2 undead monsters from any encounter table. Then encounter and kill monster E80, which becomes an elite monster because it has the arrow. A vampire has begun feeding in the region and has set up a nest at an abandoned tomb. A person has offered a reward to anyone who can stake out the tomb and then stake the vampire and put an end to this evil. Let's write down the details and then we're going to play through this and make sense of it from a narrative perspective. Now we have to figure out what kind of person has offered the reward. So just because the Countess knows about this quest, it doesn't mean that she is the one who is giving out the reward for it. She could have just been keeping her ear to the ground for information about this particular area. So we're going to roll on the names table. 59. It's a Jester. The quest modifier for this one is a 6. There is no person modifier. The Jester doesn't have any modifier. And the hex modifier is a -1. So that brings us to a 5. And now we're going to roll on the quest reward table. That's a 3. So if we do this correctly, we get 550 gold pieces. If we fail, we lose half of our gold pieces. And the encounter modifier is -5. So like I always do, I'm going to pull up my names table from Mythic, and I'm going to roll twice on it. We got a 64 on ON and 24 LELL. We are going to name the Jester Onelle, and we're going to say that she is female. So, as Alendra is talking to the Countess and she's asking her about whether or not she knows of any rumors, she's heard of anything new happening there, anything she should be aware of, Countess Anne says, well, there is one thing, but whether it's a fool's errand or something worth your attention, I will leave that to you. There's a woman, a jester of all things, who has been making quite the spectacle of herself. She calls herself Onelle. She arrived in court some weeks ago, uninvited but tolerated. From what I understand, no one knows where she came from, only that she appeared in a flurry of bells and color, whispering the same sordid tale to anyone who would listen. She speaks of a vampire, a creature of the old world, one she claims has made its lair somewhere in the broken desert. She says this vampire has 7 minions, and she offers a reward, 550 gold pieces for anyone who will hunt them down and put an end to the creature and its 7 servants. You can find Onelle either at court or in the city square most days. And with that, we have our fourth quest. So, for her to move from the grasslands to the desert, the amount of action points that it takes, which means the number of days that it takes, is based on the grasslands. So if we look over here, it has a move of 4 AP. So that's 4 action points. It takes her 4 days to get to the Broken Desert. So that's what she's going to do. She's going to set off on her journey, and it's going to take her 4 days to get there. However, because there is a road going through here, that modifies the number. So she's following the flow of the road. She's going from Yestus or nearby Yestus, and she's heading down here to the Broken Desert. So that means that the number of action points it costs is reduced by 2. So instead of 4 action points, instead of 4 days, it's going to take her 2 days. So we will go ahead and cross off 2 days and 2 more rations. Being the narrative driven player that I am, I would like to know more about what the Broken Desert looks like. So, to do that, we are once again going to call upon Mythic. And this time, we are going to use a Mythic variation, and we're going to use the randomized location crafting rules that came from Mythic Magazine. I have it in the Mythic Magazine compilation number 1, which I'm going to link down below in the description box in case you're interested. So the first thing that we need to do is determine what type of region this is. Is it a wilderness? Is it a city? Is it a structure? Well, we already know it's a desert, so it is most definitely a wilderness. Now, continuing on, it says to get the description of the region you're about to explore, roll D100 twice on the region descriptions table on the next page. You'll get a pair of generic details that you can combine and interpret to get an idea of what this region is all about. So, wilderness, 72. Strangely, it is mountainous. So I'm interpreting that to mean that there are some really huge sand dunes, which might make sense given that Countess Anthony said that the settlement that her ancestors managed to build disappeared. So maybe there was a giant sandstorm that she didn't know about, and maybe it all just got swallowed up by sand. So let's say that mountainous in this case means very tall sand dunes. We're going to combine that with 38 active natural elements, such as a volcano, waterfall, river, winds, rain, etc. So again, I am interpreting that to mean sandstorms. As Alendra leaves the road behind, the endless dunes of the broken desert stretch before her. These aren't gentle rolling sands, but jagged mountainous peaks of shifting earth, rising like frozen waves in a storm-tossed sea. Some of the dunes stand so tall they cast immense slanting shadows. The air is dry, heavy with the scent of scorched earth, and something finer, the ghostly bite of dust carried on the wind, slipping into her mouth, coating her throat. And then there's the wind. It never ceases. It moans through the valleys between dunes, a hollow, whistling sound that sets her nerves on edge. She watches the distant sandstorm bloom on the horizon, the swirling column of golden rust shifting like a living thing. It does not drift aimlessly, but moves with intent, a twisting serpent of wind and dust carving a path through the dunes. She understands now why Countess Anthony's ancestors never returned. So now we have a good idea of what the broken desert actually looks and feels like for Alendra as she's walking through it. Given that she's in the middle of the broken desert and she knows that she needs to continue southeast to get to the Hills of Treasure, she is going to use 2 of her action points to scout. So that means choosing this hex right here and generating it the same exact way that we have generated a hex in the past. And then we also need to check for an event. We are going to start by rolling on the terrain table. We got a 23 grasslands. I'm sure Alendra will be very happy to be out of the desert and back into her familiar grasslands. And let's go ahead and name these grasslands. That's a 1. Terrain of Doom, Grasslands of Doom. Let's find out if there is a settlement going through here. We have a 40% chance of a settlement. 37, there is a settlement. See what kind of settlement we get. So we got a 5, that's a town. We need to name the settlement. I can either use Mythic or D100 Dungeon for this. So I'm rolling on the names table again. I got WR and 11, which is BE. Okay, we're going to go with the town of Rathspend. Now let's have a look and see if there are any roads going through here. We have a 50% chance of having a road right off the bat. And because we have a town, that's an extra 10%. So we have a 60% chance of having a road. 59. So yes, there is a road. Let's see if it splits. Or actually, let's see where it's coming from first. It starts northwest. So it's interesting that there's a road going here and then it doesn't go through the broken record. I keep wanting to call it the broken record. It doesn't go through the broken desert, which makes sense because if there are these crazy sandstorms going through here, of course they're going to obliterate any sign of a road, right? I love the way that that worked out. So we've got a road coming from northwest going southeast to the Hills of Treasure, and let's see if it splits. Out of 5, it splits once, so it does split. So it also goes to the south. So I'm going to have it going into Rathspend and then continuing south and also splitting. I guess theoretically it should have gone down to the southeast and then split south, but whatever, it's the same thing. Now let's find out if there is a river going through here. So for a river, we have a 30% chance of a river. However, we also have an extra 10% chance for the town, so that's 40. And we have another 10% chance for the road. So that's a 50% chance that there's a river. There is a river. Starts southeast and goes northwest. So exactly the same way as here, which is so interesting to me. And then it splits. Let's find out if it splits. I got a 1. It does not split. So it's just a straight up river that goes from here to down here. We're going to say that this road turns into a bridge here. And now I'm just going to go ahead and color this in. So it took Alendra 2 full days to scout and figure out that the next area is the Grasslands of Doom. So we're going to say that because Alendra has maps, she spends the next 2 days to piece together some clues from the land itself using a mix of logic and intuition and careful scouting. And she realizes that the broken desert will eventually give way to grasslands. She also figures that perhaps there's a settlement there, again, based on the maps and what she has learned previously. She might not know the name of the settlement herself, like we do, but she knows there are grasslands and a settlement in between the broken desert and the Hills of Treasure. So we're going to cross 2 more days and 2 more rations. Right, so we need to check for an event. The percentage is the current terrain's population plus any mods for settlements, roads, and rivers. So let's go to our terrain table. And we're currently in a desert. So the population of the desert is 15% plus the modifiers for settlements, roads, and rivers. We don't have any settlements, roads, or rivers in the broken desert, so it's just going to be a flat out 15%. So let's roll that D100, see if we have a random event. 25, we do not. So she's going to continue her trek across the broken desert down to the grasslands of Doom. To do that, we once again need the variable AP for moving through a desert. Moving through a desert costs 8 AP. There are no roads, So nothing's going to make this faster for her. It is going to take her 8 full days to cross this desert. Does she even have enough food to cross the desert? Let's find out. She does. However, by the time she gets to the grasslands, she is very low on food. So she's going to need to do some foraging, but that's okay. In the meantime, however, let's cross off 8 more days. Now, one of the days we crossed off had a little skull and crossbones. We would need to make a disease and poison test if she had been diseased or poisoned previously. She was not, so we can just continue on our merry way. Next day that we had crossed off here had a full moon. At the end of the day, roll a D100. If the result is 5 or less, see the werewolf event. So let's find out. 5 or less, 99. No werewolves in sight. I would have been very surprised if there had been a werewolf that popped out at her from the desert, but you never know. No werewolves, and she has finally made her way all the way to the grasslands of Doom. So that is where we're going to leave this session, with her just entering the grasslands of Doom. So in the next session, she should hopefully enter the dungeon in the Hills of Treasure and maybe even come up against a jammed door or two if she's very lucky. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them in the comments box below. And when you're ready to continue the journey, you know where to find me. See you at the quiet table.